So all bets are off now. And this idea that you're going to reach millions and millions and millions of people, I think that's a false idea.
Yeah.
You need to reach the people who care about you. And if that ain't but 10, 15,000 people, that's enough.
Yeah. Once the systems changed and everything started streaming, they didn't go back and change our contracts.
No.
So, and it's the same thing I think the movie industry started to deal with at some point.
One day stronger!
One day longer!
One day stronger!
Ho ho! Writers, make your favorite shows! Hey, hey!
Same. I don't get no money on Magic. It's got a whole channel in Brazil, they tell me, where they just running it. But there was no such thing as we gonna stream it over here. We gonna make a new channel. That didn't exist. You know what I mean? So you just, money gone, right?
That's crazy because you would think that with us having way more access to the world, that you would make way more money.
You would think. You would think. And that's why the strike is going on, right? That's why it's going on. But timing is everything. So I don't know that the timing is exactly right on this, but I gotta support my writers, I gotta support my actors and directors and producers. But by the same token, it's just a strange time.
Let's go. Catching over on the track.
Killing that, ain't you?
Yeah, man,
What up? It's your boy Dallas Austin in the building. Yeah. Welcome to Mind Over Music, the best podcast in the universe. I got my man DJ Castronova. Castro, he ain't even on the ones and twos. He's on the iPhone ones and twos and threes.
Hey, you know digital what I'm saying? DJing, man.
It's super digital DJing.
Everything digital, man.
What you been doing this week, bro?
Man, you know what? Out in the city DJing, man. Shout out to Plush, Vanity Lounge.
Oh, you doing a lot of more Afrobeat shit now,
We're
right?
doing an Afrobeat party. So that was cool because that was my first time ever DJing an Afrobeat party. So I had to learn the music while I was DJing for the first time. I didn't know none of the songs.
How did you not know none of the songs? All the records playing everywhere. You didn't play no Davido. You didn't play no.
It's a crazy story. I did play Davido, and I think Davido his family, his cousin was there. So she pulled up. She's like, "Yo, we need you to play such and such." So she's Instagram DM me like 40 songs, and I didn't know none of them.
See, most DJs don't even do that. They wouldn't even let you DM no songs up there. They'd be like, "Nah, you must have felt vulnerable."
Right. Well, it was may have been the tequila, but I think it was dope because like as I'm playing the music for the first time hearing it, I'm also seeing how people like know these songs.
Yeah,
that was dope for me to be like, oh, it's a whole new world out here.
Dude, it's amazing how Afrobeat is taking over. Well, it's a while ago. You didn't have the diversity in the United States that you have right now.
Right.
Like, yeah, hip hop and you have pop, but K-pop, Afrobeat. It's just been so many genres now of music that's seeped through. Mainly because
to the mainstream though.
Mainly, I think because of the internet too. You got so much more connection to people than you had before. It's easier for the music to get across. But
Akon was doing that back early. He was one of the.
He was from Africa, but he don't know if he was doing Afrobeat.
Right. Yeah, I seen an interview he did. He was like, yeah, I think he coined it and championed it, but that's actually what made me think about it. But it means so many people that I think it was like him being from there and then being able to like, have this connection over here, like you said. But now you got the internet. Psh.
Yeah, I mean,
and you got so many dope Afrobeat artists now. I mean, like,
it's killing.
On my lay, I love, Davido, of course, mad respect.
See, with Burna Boy, he was the first one that really sold out a stadium, and he sold out the whole stadium by himself.
I can believe it.
That's hard, bro. That's like
and he the headliner.
That's some loyal. That's some loyal fans right there. Big shout out to Burna Boy because that's an amazing
salute the Afrobeat community.
Yeah, to be in America doing that is crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Saying?
Man, we got 20 years of Drumline this year. It's a 20-year anniversary.
Yo, that's big. You said that really. You got to hit some horns on that one, Deshaun, when you do it. 20 years. Okay, so Drumline. I'm watching Drumline. We love Drumline. We had I think I was in with my homies. You know what I'm saying? We just kind of chilling middle school type vibes. But I mean, we watch Drumline once a week. It's coming on TV all day.
Dude, luckily for me, it was a phenomenon. But it was one of those things where it was the only marching band movie made. Still to this day, it is. It's just how. I always say it's authentic because it just didn't belong to me. It belonged to the people in the band.
And shout out to the TSU band and the Grammy.
Shout out to TSU,
and they put the icing on the cake.
Double A came through. Sir the Baptist came through. Professor Jenkins. The whole TSU squad. I want to send a shout out to them because we're working on a documentary right now also.
Oh, word.
That's it's going to drop this year.
Cool take on that too.
Yeah, man.
How was that doing that after doing Drumline, and then for them to know how much of an impact it had on them as students at TSU, and then to see you come in and actually be a part of a documentary? How was that experience? And then not only that, let's also hit the horns again. You got an honorary doctorate.
Oh yeah.
TSU.
Yeah.
Tell
We did a lot.
It's quick,
A
right?
lot going on. I got the doctorate. We did the album with the marching band and various and sundry of like the most amazing gospel artists ever.
Right.
And it was the first time it ever happened that way. And we got a Grammy for it, and we got a documentary to go to it that's coming up next, so that all the people can. It was funny because they, being in the marching band and kind of getting my doctorate through the band,
The arts especially, that's dope.
and it being the 20th anniversary of Drumline.
It's like the stars align in Dallas. What's really going on?
Full circle, man. That's why I got some surprises for you today, bro.
Yeah.
I got a
So who we
surprise
got today,
guest,
man? You got to tell me what we doing.
I got a surprise guest that everybody's gonna be like tripped out about because he's done so many things. But before that, make sure you like, subscribe,
Like, subscribe, comment,
turn
on your notifications.
Turn on your notifications so you know when the new episodes are dropping. Because you never know what jewels and what person I'm gonna bring up on the show. You know what I'm saying?
Got to be tapped in.
Yep. We'll be right back. Check this out.
Section leaders, what is our concept?
One band, one sound.
One band, one sound.
It's showtime.
Yo, today we got a guest that's a super guest. I mean, he's done so many things, starting out being a writer for Mad TV, to A Different World, to like the actor, director, writer. I don't know what all he hasn't done. He's done so many films, so much television, and luckily we met through one of the greatest films ever made called Drumline. And then we ended up being brothers ever since then from that point. And if you look up now, you might even catch him on the road because, he's got a stand-up show that he's trailing around with, ladies and gentlemen, on the set. My man, Orlando Jones, baby. Doing big things, baby. I got OJ on the show, big baby. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, happy to be here, man.
This was his gig because we had a talk show called Orlando Jones Show back in the day. This was just his couch. So to have him me being the opposite, being the host and have him here is like it's deja vu in a different way.
Right.
What's up, man? What you up to,
man? I'm with my man, so it's love.
It's crazy because we met on Drumline, but what we didn't know when we met on Drumline is that our parents knew each other from Columbus, Georgia.
Which was crazy. John Lee, is that you?
I was like, Mom, you know Orlando's dad.
My mama was like, what's happening? What's happening right now?
Yeah, my mom and we're from Columbus, Georgia, and my mom and dad had a soul food restaurant and a nightclub that everybody, all the politicians and coaches and everybody, it was like the hangout for blacks. And then your dad was coaching down there, right?
Yeah, he was coaching at Carver High School.
Yep.
In Columbus, Georgia, yeah.
So we go way, way back.
Way back.
So let's talk about just how you started, man. Like, what was the first thing that made you, and I know your dad. So in that household, your mom is a funny one, by the way.
For sure.
But how did you get started, man? What was the first entrance into it?
Oh, man, I had a teacher in high school. Her name was Gladys Robinson. She was the only teacher I had to curse. And I took her public speaking class. And when I finished, she told me to sit my ass down because she had something to tell me. And I was like, who is this white lady? And why is she cussing at me? And she was like, you need to be in the entertainment business. You have a gift. You should really go for this. And she, to her credit, she really pushed me and got me to join the debate team. And I won the national championship in dramatic and humorous interpretation. And then I got drama school offers. And that kind of sent me on my way and started an advertising agency when I was 18. And that kind of lifted me off into it. But mostly it was Gladys just sort of pointing out that this was something I should pursue, and she sort of pushed me in that direction.
Were you writing you had moved to L.A. by that point?
No, I was in Charleston, South Carolina. And I had gotten a couple of commercial gigs, and we started to go around and pitch other people to let us produce their commercials. So I got Food Lion as a client. I got Mazda as a client. And, they were hiring this kid, so it was crazy. And I was making commercials for him. And that's really what started me out. And then I went to L.A. and got a job writing on A Different World. And the rest was sort of history.
But how do you was that before Mad or after Mad?
It was all before Mad TV. I went to L.A. for the first time in 1990. And I started my advertising agency in 1988. And so the
How you just
advertising
start an
agency-
advertising agency? We'll go to LA and just start me an agency. Up. Like,
No, this is a crazy story for real though. So what happened, D, was I got hired as a consultant by these people who were trying to reach young black kids in South Carolina. So they figured they'd hire a young black kid, and that was
Right.
me. And they had paid me, and I think I made like five G's. And I was sitting on the sofa, and I was looking at the commercials that I pitched them that they had sold, and they were now producing. And it was like $11 million worth of commercials. And
Damn.
suddenly my 5 G's didn't sound like
So
nothing.
you-
So I took that reel of commercials because those were the ideas I had pitched them. And I said, hey, these came from my ideas. And I started showing those to other advertising companies, say, hey, let me do your advertising. And a lot of them were like, who is this kid? And a couple of people were like, well, let's just try him out. And so that's how my agency started working. And I started shooting commercials. And then I had a reel. So I sent that reel out to California when they were looking for writers for A Different World, because that's all I had of my writing and acting work. And they flew me out, interviewed me, and then hired me. And so suddenly I was now in Los Angeles writing on a top 10 television show. And I had just been doing these little commercials in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and that was it.
yeah. So what was the first acting gig you got though?
The first commercial acting gig I really got was we did these ads called Two Dude. And they were but basically this is the idea. You remember the guy who used to do them commercials named Vern
Yeah.
back in the day, and he would do all the car commercials and blah blah blah. So
Yep.
I got the idea that I wanted to do those type of commercials, right? So Food Lion sold food only, and at the time, all these stores were popping up that sold food, groceries, batteries, all this kind of stuff. Stores more like Walmart. So they were like, why don't you be in the commercial since you wrote it? And that was my first on-camera real work. And then when I got to Hollywood, the first thing I was in was really the Whitney Dwayne wedding. So in the season finale of A Different World, I am Byron Allen's groomsman. I'm sorry, Joe Morton. Joe Morton's groomsman. And that was kind of my first on-camera work because Debbie Allen cast me. She was like, Orlando should just play this role and be his brother. And so I was on A Different World, and then I continued acting after that, and that was it.
But it seems like you came up in the time of Hollywood where it was the first run of like, not the first run because you had like that Sidney Poitiers and all them before, but like the run of black actors that started to be like, I guess more pop appeal, more audience to it.
Mm-hmm,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Well, A Different World was such a big show because it was Cosby, A Different World, Cheers, Wings, L.A. Law. And I didn't realize that was the biggest night in television history. 40 million people watching, nobody changed the channel. So I didn't know where I was, but that's where I was, right? So, and that was all because of Cosby. Cosby had 1 hour of television on NBC on Thursday night. So it was really him and a lady named Susan Fales who hired me that really put me in the writing producing game. And then just from me being funny in the room, they were like, you should really be doing both. You should be writing and on camera. And that crew of people really, nurtured me, helped me, pushed me. And next thing you know, I was, doing both.
That's crazy because it sounds easy, but that ain't. It don't really go there. It's a lot of everything else they got to come to play.
Yeah,
but
I
that's
was lucky.
That's the dream to get to LA and get going and get busy like that.
It was crazy because I had a job before I left because they hired me as a writer, and I got there. And that really gave me a chance to be in the room with the producers, the studio, and the network. So I really got to see how it worked and also how they think of actors when I was just hanging out with them. So by the time I got in front of the camera, I really knew what the game was. And so many actors have no clue because when you're an actor, it's like a mushroom. You feed them shit, keep them in the dark. They don't want to tell actors nothing.
Yeah.
But because I knew what it was, it really opened up the doors for me.
What do you think about like what's going on now with the speaking of acting, like it's obviously strikes going on. It's always strikes going on here and there.
Always.
Do you think that how do you think that's going to affect, or is it going to affect how movies are made now?
I mean, I think a lot of stuff is going to change because of production budgets, AI. Lots of things are going to change, lots of things. But see, if you're making videos on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, you don't care. The strike don't have no effect on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So YouTube in particular. So I feel like the business is going to change in how things get done. I just don't think it's going to be the same level of gatekeepers anymore. You ain't going to be able to tell people what they can and can't do no more because they can take their iPhone, make their joint, and put it up on YouTube. And if it finds an audience, it finds an audience. So that's just what it is now.
That's crazy because it's always been we started to do Drumline. It was like the first movie here that when we came down, we had a real budget. Started at 13, went to 18 million, but it was the first time that a lot of people didn't know how serious it was and what we were really doing.
Yeah.
And I remember us getting in the car, riding and talking about the music and talking about like the characters and all that stuff in it. And I knew we were going to have something special, some form of phenomenon in some sense, because they never made a marching band movie like that before. But what I found interesting about it is, remember, the more the budget came, the more they kind of said, okay, well, let's put more white people in, and we got to switch this up now.
Definitely.
And I didn't understand back then that urban movies wasn't made for
not that kind of
amount.
money. No. Look, the only reason they hired me is because I'd done Double Take, and Double Take was in that budget range, $25 million and better. Mostly I'd been doing movies that were more expensive than that, right? So the reason the studio called me was they were like, if we're going to put this much money in a movie, then we need somebody who's delivered before.
Yep.
But to be honest, people give me credit for Dr. Lee, but that's really you. I mean, the soul of that movie is, the movie's based on your life. I mean, your inspiration for that movie is all I was trying to bring to life. So I feel like you don't get enough credit for Drumline because that's really you.
I appreciate that, OJ.
That's
real.
real.
What I'm saying? It's the 20th anniversary this year, right?
Is it?
Yeah, it's the 20th anniversary, and
wow.
That's what's so crazy about it is it's like a Top Gun or something where it never really gets old to it. But that character, do people still? Because I remember when we was at TSU, everybody said, "Dr. Lee."
Every day. Every day. I ain't been Orlando ever. Dr. Lee, Mr. Nancy, Tyler James Williams. Is that Mos Def? It's crazy, man.
You've been acting for so long, though. You don't have so many characters that affected so many people's lives that they get attached. Like the Mr. Nancy character, everybody was just like obsessed with, because it had that underground. On American Gods, it had that underground feeling to it. Did you find people? You found like when you turn, how do you turn into these characters?
Listen, one of my favorite things to do is that look, the most fun part of acting. And I again, from conversations we had over the days, you were telling me one time about working with artists, and you were saying, yo, when I work with artists, I become a psychologist, right? Because I can really understand what that makes the person tick. And so I do the same thing with my characters. I want to understand what part of the body do they lead with when they walk? What secret are they trying to keep that they don't want you to know about them? And they're going to try and protect that no matter what. How are they trying to, floss? What's their drip like? I just try and create characters that really feel authentic to whatever we're doing. So for me, I try and put me aside and say, what's this movie about? What does it need? And what's the best type of character to bring this story to life? So for me, that conversation I had with you on Drumline was how that character was made. Because if I don't understand where the story came from and what's important about the story, then it's hard for me to create a character. But it's much easier if you're like, look, I was in high school. I was in these bands. I went to Battle of the Bands. Here's music. I don't read music. But and all that stuff that you were sort of dropping, like those jewels, that's where Dr. Lee came from. Because the soul of what made you want to tell that story in the first place is what that character needs to be. And for each story, that's different. So, figuring out the voice is another thing. Again,
did any of them ever freak you out? Like what was the craziest character I think you ever done?
Oh man, there's a movie called Say It Isn't So, and I play a dude that's a paraplegic pilot with a serious cocaine problem. His name is, I'm serious. His name is Dig McCaffrey. And when you meet him, he get hit by a truck because his plane lands where it wasn't supposed to. And he got a gas can in the middle of the street, and the dude is falling asleep at the wheel, Chris Klein, and he hits me with a truck, and my legs fly off. And the character's just crazy. I mean, because he's coked up all the time, right? So his energy is crazy. He's just all over the place. That was definitely a crazy character, man. I mean, that was a crazy one. And then when I think about like Sleepy Hollow and stuff like that, or
Sleepy
even
Hollow was another one.
Swagger, what I'm doing right now, like I'm playing this character named Dr. Emery Lawson, but he would not like me. Dr. Emery Lawson would not be an Orlando Jones fan. He is serious about his business. You know what I mean? I love playing people who would not like me, who are totally different from me and would be annoyed by me. You know what I mean? That's fun for me.
The other one I saw, the hotel room one, was it?
Room 104,
Room 104
on HBO. Yeah, that's a weird dude. That dude's in a cult.
That dude is weird as hell.
He's a weird
I saw
dude.
that. I was like, damn, how did he pull this one off? Because that shit was crazy.
You know, those people always think that what they're doing, even though, you know, they're in something, they think what they're doing is for the right reason, right? So they approach it from a real earnest point of view. No matter how strange it is, they're serious about it.
Yep.
And that just kind of stuck with me. So in Room 104, when the Duplass brothers were like, yo, we really want you to do the first episode and bring this to life for this series, I was like, okay, I think I got a guy that will fit perfect right here.
That dude is so weird. But then you have so many span of characters, though. That's what's interesting about all the characters that you played over your career and stuff. Is like they just do their own thing.
Yeah. I mean, the same with your music, right? You do rock, you're doing pop, you're doing genre. I mean, when you're a storyteller, you're not thinking about nothing except how to get that story across.
Yeah, and I've seen this with you in the music too, because you know, for the longest when we had that period when we was in LA and here you had gangster rock and you signing artists, you had artists you was working with, making dope music, and it just brings you back to it's all about the story.
That's it.
Yeah,
and that was an experiment. At the time, I was like, I just want to experiment and see what it would look like if I took these genres of music that I love and fuse them together.
Yeah.
And, you know, you had really inspired me to just, you know, do it and go for it. So I was like, let me just try it and see what it works. It was amazing, incredible experience.
We was talking earlier about the show we had, it was the Orlando Jones show, and we sitting around one day and FX called Orlando and said, hey, we want you to do a show. And then me and Jovar was sitting there with him, and he goes, man, they just asked me to do a talk show. Man, I don't want to do the talk show.
I did not want to do a talk show.
And he said, well, if I do it, y'all going to do it with me? And so it was like, yeah. So we ended up being, you know, the musical director, myself and DJ Ruckus. And then Jovar ended up being a producer on the show. And next thing you know, we're on the Fox lot shooting this show, like the late night show that had every star from Keanu Reeves to Kanye to everybody in it.
We broke Kanye.
Yeah.
That was Kanye's
that was
first
through the
TV
wire.
appearance. That's right. That was through the wire. Maroon 5 too.
Sure was.
We broke them too, yeah.
How was you didn't really want to do that experience in the first place, but I was
it was fun to do because I did it with you and, you know, Jovar and Ruck and, you know, Ali Leroy and Wayne Kennedy. I had a real group of folks who I really still care about, and that was fun. The thing about a talk show is I didn't want to be put in a box.
Yeah.
I wanted to push the envelope out.
Yeah.
And I thought that they were going to put me in a box. And they swore they wasn't going to put me in a box. And then as soon as we got to
the box showed up.
The box showed up. I'm like, what is this? So, and at the time, you know, Arsenio was gone. There was really only Kimmel. As they were launching, you know, Leno and Letterman and stuff. And I just wanted to do something different. I didn't want no couch or nothing. So, you know, it was a crazy time, but I don't know, man.
Well, you've been creating content for so long. Like, you was ahead of the content creation curve that's going on over the last, 10 years when everything started to be like do-it-yourself content.
Yeah.
So you've always been ahead of the curve on that. Where do you see it going now, like as far as content?
Right now, I think what you're doing, literally this right here, is the future of how it all goes. I think you now have the tools to make content on your own, yourself, and you have the tools to distribute it right away. So all bets are off now. And this idea that you're going to reach millions and millions and millions of people, I think that's a false idea.
Yeah.
You need to reach the people who care about you. And if that ain't but 10, 15,000 people, that's enough to have a very, very successful business that you can grow. But I think this idea that everybody's going to be following the same thing like they was back when I was doing A Different World.
Everybody was narrowed into one place, the television set.
Yeah,
so
that's gone now.
Yeah.
So I like it because I feel like you get to see people who would have never gotten a shot in Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It opened the door for them. I don't think Hollywood's going to go away because they're making too much money.
Yeah.
But I do think that other people who we're not accustomed to seeing are going to sneak in. What I hope is that what happened in the music business doesn't totally happen, where they're so scared of the technology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, in our business too, I think that, like, even for myself, I had to go back and change my contracts to say streaming because when I first did my deals, none of them said streaming. Yeah. Wow. So I was signing EMI for publishing, and EMI to Sony, and they said, okay, you got to deliver 18 complete songs a year. right? But at that time when I did the contract, I was doing I had my labels going, so I would do Monica and do everybody else, and so you're knocking 9-10 songs out like it ain't nothing, right?
Yeah.
But once the systems changed and everything started streaming, they didn't go back and change our contracts.
No.
So, and it's the same thing I think the movie industry started to deal with at some point, because that worried, and that, technology changes everything. And when that didn't exist no more and it turned into something else, the numbers and stuff wasn't right. Just like with us.
Same. I don't get no money off Mad TV. It's got a whole channel in Brazil, they tell me, where they just running it. But there was no such thing as, we gonna stream it over here, we gonna make a new channel. That didn't exist. You know what I mean? So you just, money gone, right?
That's crazy, because you would think that with us having way more access to the world, that you would make way more money.
You would think. You would think. And that's why the strike is going on, right? That's why it's going on. But, timing is everything. So I don't know that the timing is exactly right on this, but, I got to support my writers, and I got to support my actors and, directors and producers. But by the same token, it's a strange time.
But doing, how do you like doing the stand-up, like being on the road more now?
I love stand-up because I think it's the last place of free speech. It's the last place where you can just say it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And somebody might be offended, but I try and tell people, I don't give offense. You take offense.
How do you deal with that as because obviously everybody's been getting a lot of slack over freedom of speech, so to speak. And what do they call it? The cancel.
Yeah, the cancel culture.
Cancel culture and shit. But how do you deal with that thin line between being a cancel culture and not? Because that starts to tap into the funniness of the joke. You know what I'm saying?
I just, honestly, man, I don't care. I don't think I can care, because I think it would hurt what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to do is, if 500 people, 1,000 people come into a room, they all separate. And I'm trying to have them leave that room all together. I'm trying to talk about life experiences in a way that they realize that the real hustle is for us to hate each other. That's the real hustle.
Yep.
And if I can convey to you that that's the hustle, and if we work together, we can defeat some of these things.
Yep.
Then that's really what I'm trying to convey in any show that I do. But I like it because of the free speech. But I also understand that some people are not going to like what I have to say. You know what I mean? And they might want to cancel me, but they have tried to cancel me before.
It's part of the gig, ain't it?
Yeah, that's part of the gig. And if they ain't trying to cancel you, then you ain't saying nothing, right? Like, I'm not trying to be safe. I'm not interested in that.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop my shit. You know what I mean? If you don't like it, then don't listen.
In all capacities. I mean, but I think like everything else, when somebody sees something, the freedom down here is when it's okay, that's a good idea. But when it turns successful at that idea, and then they start to curb it, or they start to box it, or do whatever they do at the time, that's when the gatekeepers, that's when the advertisers kick in.
That's right. Exactly.
When the advertisers go up, everything else start to go down. Let's clean that up. You know what I'm saying?
For real.
I always talk to them about how music is connected to your nerves, right? And how, that whole thing about, and you did a piece one time, was it in Africa? Was it?
Yeah.
Africa, with the rainforest, with the it was just.
It's called the music lesson.
The music lesson.
Yeah, I took 10 kids from the Boston Youth Symphony Orchestra to Laikipia, Kenya, to the Highlands, to play music with the kids that are part of nomadic tribes. And their rhythm and pulse, right? All this music has been passed down since the dawn of man. And these kids from Boston are, got their classical instruments. They're all well trained. And these other kids had never seen these instruments before. But in 1 week, these African kids figured out how to play these instruments.
Wow.
And they couldn't communicate with the kids from Boston. They didn't speak the same language. So to me, it was just showing how the power of music is a universal language, that they could find a way to communicate through music, right? It was phenomenal. And, that you inspired me really on that, because how you talked about music, the feelings, the way and I had you come in and really talk in that project. You said some beautiful words on that project. It really touched people a lot.
It was just crazy how music is that one language, that one, even in Drumline, that one band, one sound.
Yep.
But it's amazing how universal the musical language is, even across all other borders. And film is supposed to do the same thing. It's just that, I remember they told us, they said, well, Drumline isn't going to play overseas. It's an urban movie.
That's right.
You know, and I was out at Crawford one day. The communications company. I seen Drumline playing in all these different countries, Spain. There's no like, is that playing everywhere? There's like, yeah, it's running all the countries you're seeing it in now. Why do you think that where did that come from? Was you think that's old now, where urban movies? But I wouldn't even call it an urban movie. But
yeah, I don't think that's an urban movie. It's just a movie about a coming of age movie about a young man trying to figure his way through life.
But at the time too, Hollywood was such a trip. Not that it's not now, but it was. I remember them being like, "Should we cut his hair? He's gonna have braids. Can't have braids. Gonna do this. We're not gonna take out ads in the newspaper. Do black people read the newspaper?"
Exactly. That's the kind of
So
stuff.
I was like, "Well, that's where the movies come up at this point. It was no internet,
Right?
So people would be surprised at how much marketing and how much stuff goes into the trick of the eye. You know, when they're doing that. And I remember when I was trying to get the budgets up because the bands were so big. And I had to go talk to Quincy Jones, and he was like having the same problem out of Color Purple, because he just didn't think about budgets as being that way. But now, like, especially through hip hop culture, like everything is just, it's like it's been under attack. And if you ain't got nothing urban now, you ain't.
You dead.
You dead. It ain't possible.
It's over for you.
Did you see it? Did you see a change at one point in the way that Hollywood started to look for urban?
I think
culture
Hollywood
movies?
goes in cycles. Because, you know, in the days of Shaft and Superfly and Three the Hard Way, all those films got made during a particular time because Hollywood was empowering those type of movies, right? And then people decided that those movies were not the right type of movies, right? And suddenly they went away. When I first was writing on the pilot of Martin, I remember when, you know, Martin was winning awards, Image Awards, right? And then 3 years later, they said, oh, he's cooning. And then they tried to shut it down. So it's not just, you know, the Europeans that don't understand our culture. There's also how our culture shifts and often attacks our own successes when they reach a certain point. I just think it's mad messy because what it really should be is this artist is telling this story authentically. Let that story reach its audience. You don't need to tell somebody what it is, right? Like, don't nobody care. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger had a 50 kill clause in his contract. If he didn't kill 50 people, he shut the movie down, right? But nobody came in and said, oh, well, we can't do this because you're selling murder too hard, right?
Yeah.
Right? That judgment didn't come in. We're consistently battling this idea that we need to present this way to this person and present that way to that person. And I don't believe that. I think we're human beings and we present how we present. But Hollywood is not still particularly ready for that. They're trying to be, but they don't know how to be. And, you know, unfortunately, unless they put us in charge of what we are, you're never going to be able to be in charge of us in that way.
Yep.
And the dilemma is they wish to be in charge of us. So
That's the tug of war that's been going on for a long time.
long time.
But then, you know, what's cool about the East Coast, like, you know, Wilmington and even down to Atlanta, is, you know, like I couldn't have got Drumline done if I was just in LA trying to make it as a Hollywood movie. It would have just been like, and I remember when they find him telling me, she's like, I have no idea what you're doing. I don't know what it is, you know, but I'm gonna fence you off and go make the movie you want to make.
That's crazy.
But because these cultures didn't exist, like even Tyler's stuff, I remember being in LA when we were doing the Diary of a Black Woman, Mad Woman soundtrack. And one of the execs looked at it and said, man, what is this? Do you think this is like D movies? Is this going to be anything? I was like,
Right.
well, it's just culture that you don't understand.
That's all it is.
And finally, I feel like the South and the Southeast and all this stuff has gotten a footprint in the culture. Like, you know, you used to didn't see a lot of shows from the South. You used to didn't see a lot of shows with Southern context to it. And then after Drumline and ATL and Fighting Temptations, they started doing all these kind of movies out. What do you think the you know, in where we headed in content for urban stories, like?
Hopefully, I'm hoping that the stories start to showcase the black middle class is still deeply unrepresented, and the black upper class is largely deeply unrepresented. So
It's like everything is either gangster or like.
yeah, or it's this niche over here or this little thing over here. But your regular middle class group is not really represented. They're looking for stuff too. They got money to spend too. You know.
What do you think the difference in that is? Like, because when we had the like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or the Cosby Show, or Different World. They were all like, upper middle class. They
Right.
were all in there. That was all the.
Well, you had Quincy and Cosby and people like that who had been so successful that they were able to shepherd those type of shows into existence. Just like you shepherded ATL and Drumline into existence, right? Even what Tyler's doing, to be totally honest, as you know, the film incentive in the state of Georgia started with Dallas Austin. I was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You went and talked to the mayor, to the lieutenant governor, to the governor about what it would bring in terms of jobs and opportunities to Atlanta.
Yep.
But it takes someone like you, it takes someone like Quincy, it takes hopefully someone like me, right, to shepherd that in, right, and to say, let's do these type of stories and take it. And so that's what I hope will come. But right now, that's not exactly where we are, right? Right now, they're still trying to figure out how to make a nickel off of Pound Town. It's true.
Well, watch in the next year, she's gonna be the biggest phenomenon unless she don't get another one. Either she get another one or she don't. I always say records and film are the same. You got to cram 3 minutes of a song into a story. Right. So whether your story is Pound Town or whether it's like Cardi's records, it's just it's a piece of slice of culture that people wasn't getting before, like that. Especially like the pop or white audiences, they wasn't because what's making the artists this big is not just us.
Facts.
It's all the kids that's really impressed with what's going on with it. And now I look at it and say for television and film, and where it's headed, it's how much more real you think it can get.
It can't get no. Can't get no
start
realer
reality
than,
shows. They're gonna start cutting it. If you make it out the jungle or not, you get eaten by the tiger for real.
I mean, what are we gonna do? Snuff films next? Show people getting killed? I mean, BDG and Pound Town is real. That's pretty real right there. But I tell you what I miss though. I miss Waterfalls. I miss Creep. I miss love songs.
Yeah,
I think love songs feel like they disappeared.
The vulnerable. We talked about this too. The vulnerability in the male songs left at all. Casey and Jodeci might have took it all with them.
For real. For real. That's real. I mean, and that's weird to me, right? Because it used to be you would never see us in love on camera, right?
Yeah.
You see, two Europeans in love, but you'd hear our music.
Yeah.
To set the tone. You know what I mean? So now I feel like, yes, but can we be on camera? And if we are on camera, what goes with that now? Is it BDG? Is that what it is? Because that's a very different feeling than, sexual healing, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder now where it's going to go, but I also feel like it always goes in cycles.
Yeah.
Because if we're looking at the UK, they completely reverted back to old school R&B.
Yeah, for sure.
They went back, right? But I still felt myself, I mad love to Ed Sheeran, but if the first words are "when your legs don't work like they used to before," that ain't no love song for me. I don't know about that as a love song. But I hope that it returns. I miss it. I miss the way it makes me feel. I miss singing those songs in the shower, and I miss the experiences you had listening to that music.
I never thought I'd get to that point. I used to always hear like people like Quincy and them talk about music in that way, like, oh man, it ain't like it used to be, or it ain't
right?
Like
Me too. We sound old because we old.
Just crazy with it. What you got for the future that you're excited about now? You just finished To Death Do Us Part is one thing.
Got a movie coming out August 4th, Till Death Do Us Part, in theaters all summer. That'll be a lot of fun. Revenge.
What's his name? Who's part of the cast on that?
Natalie Byrne is the star of the movie. You see her in the Expendables movies.
Yep.
Real action star. A guy named Cam Gannett also in the film. It's just a really fun, crazy movie. And almost like John Wick with a female, right? It's amazing. That's fun. And Swagger is on Apple TV Plus. I'm really proud of Swagger. It's loosely based on Kevin Durant's life.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's what because Kevin went from high school to the pros, and
that's what it is. Okay.
That's a hell of a jump, really, when you think about being a young high school student, now you're running around with all these men in the pros, and it's a business suddenly. And so Swagger really covers that story, but instead of focusing just on Kevin, it focuses on the female athletes, it focuses on the teachers, the instructors. You really get a lot of different perspectives. Gina Prince Bythewood, who did Woman King, and Reggie Bythewood directed it. Reggie wrote it.
They're a bad team. They always have been.
They're amazing. I mean, in fact, they did the draft on Drumline.
They sure did. They sure did.
That's right. The green light draft on Drumline
Sure
with
did.
Reggie and Gina. I've known them since we wrote together in a different world. They are easily two of my favorite people on the planet. I love them dearly. So working with Reggie and also working with Reggie on this type of people, the thing I'm most proud of right now in terms of the work I've most recently done by far is Swagger. Swagger is something special. So if you get a chance to check it out on Apple TV Plus, season 2 is when I joined the show, but season 1 is fire. It's just a dope show. I'm really
Then
proud.
he did my Lakers show.
Oh, a Winning Time.
Winning Time. That show is crazy. If you haven't seen Winning Time, it's a real good insight to the old Lakers.
It's great. Rodney Barnes is a great writer. Like Reggie Rock Bythewood, also an incredible, phenomenal writer. And Rodney and I worked on American Gods together.
Okay.
In season 2, we wrote Mr. Nancy together on American Gods. So Rodney and I were really close, and he was saying to me, "You should play Elgin Baylor. You should really play Elgin Baylor." So that's how I wound up on Winning Time, because we were talking about, the Lakers are really from Minneapolis, land of the lakes. And they moved to Los Angeles. And the person who moved them to Los Angeles, and the reason they came to Los Angeles, was Elgin Baylor. And Elgin Baylor was the one that the Lakers-Celtics rivalry, that was all Elgin Baylor against the Celtics. And Elgin was never able to win one. And then Jerry West came in the last year he played, and they finally won one of those. The Lakers won a championship. But that rivalry was built on Elgin Baylor. But because TV cameras weren't around when he was playing, people don't know him the way they know these other players. But if you go look up clips of Elgin Baylor, I've never seen anybody play more dynamically than him. Like the shots he put up, he was throwing shots up over his head, but not even looking at the basket. It was just crazy stuff he was doing. He was just a freak of nature, and so that's kind of how I came into Winning Time.
I didn't even know that the Lakers came from Minneapolis.
Yeah, Minneapolis, land of the lakes. That's where they came from. And then they got bought by a guy, and he was like, "I want to bring him to a bigger stage and take him to Los Angeles, but I need a marquee player." And they got Elgin Baylor, and that's who everybody came out to see.
What do you think about, speaking of players now, what do you think about the transition of men, women, men playing men's sports, women playing?
Man, look, I try not to get in God business. I really think that you have to evaluate the difference between, no matter how you identify, if you are physiologically one creature and you are trying to compete against another creature who is physiologically different, then I don't know that we can say that that's a fair matchup. That matchup doesn't seem to necessarily work for me, right? I understand that, though, with the lack of representation and with the tremendous amount of oppression and bigotry and prejudice and discrimination that has gone on with the LGBTQ plus community, I get it. I get why the pushback is so hard, right? I get why the fight is so hard. So in that sense, I'm super supportive, right?
Yeah.
But in another sense, I don't think that my daughter should be, drag racing with RuPaul. Those are two different setups.
Yeah.
They really are. And I don't think RuPaul thinks that, right? The idea that the whole LGBTQ plus community thinks the same way is crazy. They have differences of opinion just like anybody does, right? But my thing is, we give these labels, then we put people in the box and we say, "Oh, you got to go along with everything that everybody says that goes in that box." And that's just not the way it is.
It's not the way it works.
That ain't how it works. So maybe there is a setup where that is equal. I am not educated enough to say that I've seen that setup.
Yeah.
And what I've seen and heard, I think that's just as ludicrous as trying to pretend Muggsy Bogues is going to defeat Shaquille O'Neal. No, he ain't. 7-1 can't do nothing with 5-4. It is what it is. And it doesn't matter that they are physiologically the same. That's just a disadvantage you will not overcome and win consistently. So I think we just have to acknowledge that we are different. God made us all in a very, very special and beautiful way. That is to be acknowledged and celebrated. But it isn't to make us be pitted against other people. So now they're the demon and you're the good guy. You're the good guy. You're the demon. To me, that's just a hustle to try and get us to hate each other. They want us to hate the LGBTQ plus community. They want them to feel like they got to fight with us. And so they've created a scenario to make us fight. I think that scenario is meant to make us fight.
There's been a lot of it's an interesting time, I think, just because everything starts to match together. Whether it's music, whether it's people, whether it's fashion.
It don't matter.
Everything just started to match. And I remember the time it was just like everything was so separated, like even in the marketing of companies.
Definitely.
That's going to go only over here, and that's going to go only over there.
Yeah.
You think it's a little more difficult, like your daughters, the things that they'll be into coming up, or even now.
Yeah.
You think it's culturally the cultural significance in what's going on right now. How do you their intake? It got to be across the board. It is kind of like
they don't consume content the way we consume content. They don't know what channel anything is on. Yeah, I mean they don't.
Give me my iPad.
Yeah, give me my iPad, right? Dad, check out this TikTok video. You know what I mean? They just. I think for me, everybody's a gamer, right? No matter what game you play, Candy Crush, Scrabble, whatever, there's a game you play, and gaming has really taken hold. They've gamified everything. Even weight loss is gamified now. So I feel like that's a pretty big change. And the fact that you can go look for something like you can go on YouTube, dial up what you want to watch, and
there it is.
And there it is. So I think.
You're good.
Okay. I think all those things are going to change. But this is what I'll say, D. If it's the phone, the tablet, the computer, and the gaming device, that's 4 devices that are all before a TV and a movie screen. And those 4 devices, I think, are going to dictate the future of how content ultimately, they're dictating it now, of how it's received, how it's consumed, and what have you. Because those devices are devices that a regular user can put their own content on, that's why I think if Hollywood continues to be inauthentic and continues to think they're going to tell culture what it needs to be, then they're going to continue to have problems, and they're going to continue to be thwarted by these other devices. Because I can watch any of them in the car, and the subway, on the bus, right? The other one I got to come home and sit in front of. The 5th screen is just not going to be the most popular portal. 5th and 6th is not going to win it. It's 1 through 4 these days. So I feel like if they don't get a grip on that, it's going to be Napster for them, where they tried to shut it down. Shut it down.
About it.
And then what happened? What happened to all the record companies? They didn't do anything, right? And then Steve Jobs created iTunes and took a 30% tax on a bunch of content he don't even make.
Yep.
That's a hustle right there, if
That's
ever
a
there
super
was.
hustle.
That's a hustle.
Technology came in so hard in our industry that I remember it because, Napster was in, and I was a fan of Napster. I was like, man, I can get all the Prince songs, whatever.
Yeah, for real. I remember that.
But they, I also watched all the execs with their cigars say, not on my time.
Exactly.
Like, we already did it. So whatever ain't going to happen on my watch. And that's why for our industry, it just fell subject to so much tech so fast without figuring out how valuable the content was and how to use it. We should have had Warner Brothers Digital Music, Sony Digital Music, Universal Digital Music. Instead, they're paying blanket license to these to these basically storage boxes.
Yeah.
All right, the storage units to store a lot of songs, and then you can access it.
Yeah.
It all came from file sharing. It's all the same Facebook squad. Zuckerberg, Sean Parker.
Facts.
And they saw something ahead of the curve. Was just like, we can take this community of a campus and give them access to listen to everything or see everything. And now it's just spread it like crazy, and it's become what we know as content. But we slept on it in our industry. That's the, at least the film industry caught itself like doing, okay, you can have it on Peacock or Netflix, but you can have it on Netflix, but I'm gonna have it on Peacock too. Or you can have it on
we'll sell a license.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So man, what do you think about I think the tone of people in general in the creative space has become more business. I don't know if it's much business as we were in before, but like
For real.
because I feel like we were always thinking about how to own it, do it, make content, or make the company, or own the company. We always thought that way. You feel like the kids now that you've been around, do you feel any that energy from these generations, or like?
I think there kind of a couple of different camps. I feel like there's a lot of worry right now, right? People worry about this and they're worried about that. And I don't think you create content from a place of worry. You know what I mean? But I also feel like these kids are trying to be savvy. They're trying to be smart. They're trying to not be us. Right? And they're trying to find new ways to make a living and do the thing that they love, right? I feel I'm excited about young people because I think young people are going to figure it out. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
And I think that when I'm looking at what's being created, everybody says, "Oh, well, it's mediocre, right? It's not reaching the level." But we all started; it was mediocre.
Right.
So I think they need to get an opportunity to get better, right? And I think for me, what's missing with young people really is mentors. No one's guiding them.
Yep.
And how do you expect them to figure it out if we sitting over here with, decades of knowledge that we don't give to them?
That's right.
If we don't give it to them. And I think we got to figure out a way to give it to them that isn't, you got to do this, you got to do that. I think that there just needs to be a bit more of a dialogue about how these things happen. So I'm excited about it because I feel just like I felt when I was young. I was like, forget y'all, I'm going to figure this out. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel that same way. But by the same token, there are some finite rules that you must know. And you ain't going to change them rules. I don't care how you feel.
No matter how you feel, you ain't changing them rules.
You ain't changing them rules.
What would you say about like I have family, friends, people who say I'm gonna be an actor, I'm gonna be an actress. What do they do to do that? Like, is there anything that? Because I'm always a fan of like, well, you got to figure that out super hard.
Yeah, go get on stage. Actors are made on stage. In front of an audience. That's how they are made. There ain't no cut. There ain't no take two. You got to make sure the people in the back of the room hear your voice. That's really where you hone the craft. You don't hone the craft in front of a camera with a cut, take two, cut, take three. That's a different thing. I believe that doing it, like anything, makes you better.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, could anybody pull you away from the keyboard in the studio? It wasn't possible.
Nah.
It wasn't possible. Now, making a hit song to you is an afterthought because it's something you've done so many times. That's not what excites you.
Yep.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense to me, to a guy who's made a lot of hit songs, but you put in a lot of time to get there, right? So I feel like there's a real tradition of master and apprentice. And you can't become a master if you don't apprentice. That's just the way it is.
That's it.
You ain't going to jump that start past that. And there are not a lot of masters trying to help people apprentice.
I mean, I wish I had them when I was coming up because I went through so many fires that you're like, yo, couldn't somebody tell me this in the first place?
I wish somebody had told the things I wish they had told me.
That's why I like doing this, because there's so many things I've been through that when I start talking to people, they're like, what? Or nobody, and I wish somebody had told me. And I would call Quincy and them sometimes, or I call if I didn't know something about a film or some film business, I call you, hey, told you how this work. But like, I don't even see. I don't know if the curiosity is there because it's taken up by so much, content on that.
No, and they figured out a way now to make their money without the machine, right? So if you're making $5 million on YouTube, what are you gonna do on Empire making $30,000 an episode? You know what I mean? Like, for real, you're making way more money over here, so your ears aren't tuned to even hear that, right? That sounds like a lame deal to you. And I think that's a huge part of it, right? There's so much inequity going on. So for me, I encourage people to put their time into the craft, right? I didn't figure out how to embody characters, without doing a lot of work, trying to figure out how to control and use my voice, control my body, make sure I can separate my man. I mean, it was a lot of work to figure out how to get my tool, and this is my tool, to work for me.
Yep.
So I really want people to hopefully to put in the work. Unfortunately, Hollywood is a place where if you're a DNA miracle, like my daughters, they trying to put them in stuff already, right? And maybe that's nepotism or whatnot, and I kind of try and hold them back.
Yep.
I don't want to stop them from doing it, but I don't want them to get into it and realize they don't know what they're doing, and now what do you do, right? It's a tricky
But how
game.
do you do that these days when it's like, it was kind of like the same thing with, they got user generated content, so they'll find it like the way you didn't have a choice to be, unless NBC or the network exposed you. I didn't have a choice unless radio stations played me, and I had to get into the buildings and get all that.
That's right.
Now, because of Instagram and YouTube and everything, you have stars that don't have nothing to do with any of that.
Nothing. I mean, and that's a crazy thing, right? And they all want to be over on this side, most of them, right? Where they're on the side that I'm doing, but they don't have the skill set for that. Because that's not about you being you. That's about you being somebody else. That's a completely different thing.
Yep.
And that's a tough transition. And the audience doesn't often translate with them because they mess with you because you. They're not messing with you because you're trying to pretend to be somebody else.
That's a great point.
You know?
Because when you look at a lot of the influencers, no matter how big they get, then that's what they are, because that's them for real.
That's them for real, right? So unless you really have that skill set to become somebody else to the point that they're like, I ain't even know that was SS Sniper Wolf. She looked totally different this time, right? But I don't know how incentivized she is with 28 million subscribers on YouTube to want to be one of the Real Housewives of Aspen or wherever she lives. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see her saying, I need to do that. She making more money than all the housewives combined.
Yep.
Why would she do that? She's not incentivized, and I'm not mad at her for not being incentivized, But Zendaya was built in the system.
Yeah. Yep.
So of course she excels in it.
Yep.
Because she knows exactly what it is. She understands how to navigate it. It is in the DNA of her.
Yep, she does.
She really does. I'm a huge fan of her. But yeah, I feel like she got The Apprentice.
She definitely had The Apprentice.
Yeah, she got The Apprentice. My girl SS Sniper Wolf has not had that opportunity. But again, financially, Zendaya is not more successful than her. But in terms of market share, Zendaya's massive comparatively.
How hard is it from when you start doing movies like with the big movies? Then how hard is it to have your royalty stake in the picture? Like, because a lot of people will be like, give me some backside or give me something, but
they're not doing that.
It's not doing that, right?
There is no publishing, really. The way you have publishing in music is not the way you have publishing in the entertainment business. If you're not the producer or somebody way high up on the call sheet, back end is not even a discussion. Now they pay maybe one person, maybe two people, and the rest of y'all are pretty much favored nations, and you got what you get, right? That's why the strike is happening. It's not just the streaming royalties component. They used to make 22 episodes, 25 episodes. Now we make 8. That's a big drop off. All right, so if you do 8 episodes, it takes the same amount of creative work to create a series for 8 episodes as it does for 22 episodes. You still got to create the world and all the characters and create all the dynamics. So it's not less work, but on a streamer, you don't get no residuals because they don't put it anywhere else except on a streaming platform. So it's basically you're working now for less money, right? Because you're only doing 8. There's more time in between jobs.
Yep.
So it's a trickier universe. So if you don't find a way to do other things and you got your mouth on the Hollywood teat, it's going to be a rough ride for you.
How was that going to work with, people know I'm a fan of AI. I know it just is what it is.
It's a tool.
How does that start to affect? Because we've seen stories and books and scripts and everything being written in like 10 seconds.
Exactly.
So like, how does that start to affect, you think, where the writings are going?
Look, to me, if you and I were talking the other day, if I got to dig a hole and it's a choice between my hands, a spoon, and a shovel, and a tractor, I want the tractor. AI is the tractor. It helps me go faster. I'm just trying to dig a hole. Yep. Okay. I think you have to look at it that way. If what you think you're going to do is shut down the technology, that ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. So I think like when people were complaining about the internet, oh, it's so crazy. Oh, the internet. Oh, it's going to change. Here to stay.
It ain't going nowhere.
Right? I mean, I'm sure some dude in a horse and carriage was like, these crazy cars on the road with the fumes. All right, okay, ain't no horse and carriages no more. There's certain things you just got to understand. Technology and humanity marches on. To me, I know my girl Sarah Silverman is suing OpenAI and Google for saying that they took her copyrighted works. But if you really understand how it works, and I encourage anybody who wants to understand AI to check out Shelley Palmer, ShelleyPalmer.com. If you go there, Shelley Palmer teaches AI courses, the best I've seen, certainly the aficionado, the guy who knows the most that I've come across in AI. But D, for me, AI is not going to replace me.
Right.
I'm going to use AI as a tool to get my work done faster and to get my groundwork done. Mm-hmm. I don't need to sit and figure out a basic structure. I can have the AI put together the structure, but the character in my mind, that came from me. Mm-hmm. That didn't come from the machine.
Yep.
And the nuance of that character, that came from me. That didn't come from the machine.
Right.
So the machine is a tool that we use. The machine is not the thing. It's the thing that we use. I'm trying to get to London. We can take the boat or we can take the plane. Me, I'm taking the plane. That's just the way it is for me. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to argue with you about why you won't take the boat, man. You see, the difference between the boat is, stop. You know what I mean? So I'm not in fear of those things. I realize that they're going to change stuff. They're going to change a lot of things.
Yeah.
But creative artists are always going to be creative. Mm-hmm. And we should fear nothing. Because last I checked, pop culture has been controlled by black people for the last several hundred years. Since there's been a pop culture, it's been us.
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye. It was Gil Scott-Heron, whoever it was, right?
Whoever it was, yeah.
Right? Sam Cooke, right? It's Jay and Beyonce. We've always controlled pop culture, and I don't think we're going to stop because we are about breaking the rules. Mm-hmm. And we're about speaking from the heart. We are about talking from that other place, right? I think it's part of who we are, and that doesn't exclude other people, or other cultures and other nationalities. I think we all come together in that regard, right?
Yeah.
However, we were all inspired in a certain way by these groups of people, and that rhythm and pulse sound. When I went to Africa, my big learning was I was hearing quarter notes, D. I was hearing quarter melodies. I reckon those were African melodies.
Yeah.
Right? That Afro beats now.
Yep.
Is finding itself over here taking over again. But that has always been the continent because that's where we all came from. Mm-hmm. So the expectation that pretend it came from somewhere else is crazy. It came from there. It still pulses from there.
Yep.
And we are from there, but we grew up here, right? We're a little different than the African culture.
Yep.
We are distinctly American. There's no one else like us. Black Americans are completely an aberration, and our art pulses all over the world because of that. I think that's a super special thing. And I think we don't, as Black Americans, get credit. They always point about the mistakes and the problems in our communities, but what we have done artistically has changed the world, and it continues to change the world. So I'm so proud of this culture. I'm so proud to be a part of it and to be an ambassador for it. And I just try and represent it as hard as it's always held me down.
I always tell people that about Georgia, and I say, you got to realize that the landscape of American music, that we know is to be some of the most important music, period, starting with James Brown and Otis Redding and Little Richard, Ray Charles, just them four alone is Georgia. So
hold on, rock and roll, soul, R&B. You just laid out the architects.
That's before we even get started,
Wow.
And that's what America and that's what the world would know is the foundation of music for now, 10 all time. Even when you watch the Beatles and people like that, they're talking about James Brown and
they were on James's
Chuck
label.
Berry, and so it's like, pop culture now has gotten to the point where it's been. I remember when certain things just wasn't acceptable to happen black. You definitely couldn't say WAP.
Never.
You couldn't say WAP. You couldn't be shot 9 times and then Coca-Cola still give you a big deal.
That would never, right? Never happen.
I mean, as soon as TLC had they were the house going down, Pepsi, everybody would nope, can't touch that.
Yeah.
But now the culture is like, well, I guess that's what they do. That's what they are. So we got to accept that, and we need some of that because that's how. Like, even if you look at the Housewives shows, right? They're fighting on Atlanta. I watch it. I'm like, they're scrapping, but the other ones don't be fighting nowhere, right?
They don't fight.
I don't even like them shows. They don't fight on other ones.
No, they don't fight like that.
but if you look at somebody like Love and Hip Hop, like those shows now, so many drinks have been thrown and fights have been on it, but they accept that now in the culture enough to where it goes on right behind the advertiser's commercial of Secret deodorant.
Facts.
It was not, it was like, you put that on my door. Secret was like, you're not about to have me advertising behind all that foolishness. But now they're like, secret. Like,
Strong enough for a man, for me, for a woman. I used to laugh about that. I look at, LGBTQ plus culture, or LMNOP culture, as I sometimes call it. They are so inspired by black women.
yeah.
So many of the things that happen are what black women brought to light, right?
Yeah, for sure.
On Real Housewives and shows like that, right? So I think it's so interesting that we are pulsing out to different cultures. So many different, we're inspiring stuff in so many different ways. I'm sorry, it's crazy.
Just walk in and just make them accept it. Just make it. You're gonna have to. You can't
make you accept me. We've always had to do that. We've always had to say you gonna accept this whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And that attitude has gotten us where we are. And look, we're still evolving. We're still figuring it out. But I'm proud
I remember
of
when
us.
I had the kids illegal and I took them up to Arista to see Clive Davis and the staff, and this is in the Whitney days, so instantly they jumped up on the table, start kicking people's shit over, kicking over the papers and their drinks and shit. I'm like, okay, this going bad already. I'm out.
Right.
Next thing you know, they stood up and said, "Oh my God, they're stars." That's when I knew shit was going wrong.
That's what you.
You gonna just accept anything we do in this world?
That's hilarious. I can see your face actually right now watching that.
I was sitting there like this is all going wrong. They cussing. They 13 and they just cussing their ass off, just cussing everything. And I'm like, this is just went bad. As soon as they finished, they go, stars, love them.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah, man. But it was nobody growing up in our era would have been, whether your name was Puff Daddy or Jay-Z or Beyonce, your names wouldn't have got you there.
No.
They wouldn't allow it just from the namesake of it, right?
No.
And then all of a sudden, those things became the coolest things you could be. And it got to the point where you would see, white kids in L.A., in the cars with their mom, the Escalades with the rims on them, because they didn't want to be their dad anymore. They want to be Ludacris.
That's right.
And that's what started transferring the culture to be accepted in front of other, in even the white households or other households. And that's why when you go to the shows now, it's full of white kids, which is great. It's like, that's their version of rebellion.
That is their version of rebellion. That's exactly right.
No.
Yeah. And without the brilliance of Matthew Knowles to realize that there weren't songs talking about the issues that black women often face.
Oh, yeah.
And had he not put his daughter Beyonce in that scenario and protected her from the vipers, not allowed them to put her in a box, there would be no Beyonce.
For sure.
And
the work ethic and stuff that, I used to work with them when they would call the Dolls, and to see them go from.
Wait, you used to work with them when they were the Dolls?
They were the Dolls, and we were working with them, and Daryl Simmons or somebody had them signed, but you knew at that point that anytime you have kids that's talented enough with somebody that's a mentor enough that knows how it goes, you're gonna get to it.
Yeah, that's true.
He did a great job at just the whole thing with the group. Period. And I feel like that's what now. If you find somebody like that, or I was talking to KP about it. You find a good mentor, or a good A&R person, or a good person to help you develop yourself, or whatever your skill is. Keep your ears open and listen.
Please.
That's one of the things today that I don't think people do enough is just listen and take in all that advice from experts and then be able to apply that to yourself. All right.
That's all acting is. Acting is 100% listening. It's really nothing else, because the way the person says it is how you react, really.
Yeah.
And if they say it differently between one take and another take, you have to be listening enough to hear that to change your response.
Yep.
So listening is the whole game.
So speaking of Drumline, though, so working on this album, this CD, as you know, for the kids today, music was played on this before. It's like something you probably never get a chance to see again. But this was ill. I had JD on here, Monica. We went and got everybody, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's old school Drumline album soundtrack, which was crazy because I had to write the songs for the band to play back. So I wrote the songs first, and then played them for the band, and then Don Robertson makes sheet music out of it, and then they would have to play back on the field.
That's crazy.
It was insane. But then Candy, big shout out to Candy because she did with me on Monica. JD's on here. I was looking through this the other day and I'm like, man, I forgot about a lot of these songs. Joe, JC Chazé, my boy on there. JC, good and cohesive. But yeah, man. So
You see that right there. This is crazy. I can't even. Petey Pablo. North Carolina. Brown. You know, I went to the Billboard Awards with Petey Pablo.
you did.
So after Drumline, I met Petey Pablo on Drumline. It was our mom's birthday. And he was like, you should come to Billboard Awards with me. So I was like, all right, I'll go. And my mom, I was like, I'm going to miss your birthday. And she said, where you going? I said, Billboard Awards. She said, who you going? I said, Petey Pablo. She said, what's a Petey Pablo? I said, he's an artist, Mom. Like, relax. She said, what's the song that he got that's up for nomination? I say, it's called Freak a Leak. She said, what's a Freak a Leak? I say, it's about French leeks, Mom. It's about a French vegetable, because I ain't trying to tell what Freak a Leak really about, right? If y'all don't know what Freak a Leak is, let me just tell you briefly. This is how it works. There's some girls in the background and they singing, how you like it, daddy? How you like it, daddy? And then you hear my man Petey Pablo asking you some very important questions. Do you want it from the front? Do you want it from the back? Do you want it on the floor? Do you want it on the chair? Do you want it over here? Do you want it over there? Sound like Dr. Seuss for strippers. Do you want it in your pussy? Do you want it in your ass? Now, me, that ain't like paper or plastic. I would have to think about that a long time before I could give you an answer. You know what I mean? So listen, my memories is crazy. Petey Pablo's on here, my man. Like, this is insane. Nappy Roots. Nick Cannon. Oh, my goodness.
No, Nick had to have a record on there.
What?
Nick had to have a record on there.
He had to. He been pimping and pimping since pimping been pimping and pimping.
Yo, keep your mind on your music and your money on your mind. Why? Appreciate you, man.
Hey, man, for sure, man.
Always love.
Always love, baby. Always.
Yeah, man.
You're dropping them gems, boy.
Amazing, bro.
Yeah, Lando is incredible, man. We've known each other a long time now, and it's crazy our parents knew each other before we even knew each other.
Man, I think it's dope, man, to see how people can grow and then like still be able to communicate like that, man. That's awesome.
That's it, man. So make sure you keep your mind on your music, your money on your mind. It's another episode of Dallas Austin's Mind Over Music. And check this out. If Orlando Jones is anywhere and you see his comedy tour, make sure you go and see it. Make sure you check it out, y'all.
Yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you're part of the YouTube community. Come over to DAD. If you're an artist, send me your music. I'm going to check it out. We're going to put the link right here in the bottom.
Right.
And we can't wait to see y'all at the next one.
Every week, best one, baby. Yep, every week. Peace.
Peace.
I'm going 8. Water, water,